So you're probably watching this video because you want to photograph a stack of old photos and you want to know the best way to do it. Well, last weekend that's exactly what I needed to do. And I'd done it before with a scanner, and I wanted to know if there was a quick way of doing it, and I can tell you there definitely is. First up, I did consider using my scanner again, but I calculated that it took around 1 minute per photo to use it, and I had nearly 2,400 photos. That means it would have taken 40 hours of scanning to get through the whole set, and I did not fancy doing that. So let me show you exactly what I did do instead and how I got that time from 40 hours down to just 4. That is an insane reduction in time. So first up, I'm shooting with a mirrorless camera. I was using the Canon R5, but for this purpose and for demonstrating my setup, I'm using the Canon EOS R. They are quite different cameras, but for this purpose, like I say, the only real difference is 45 megapixels versus 30 megapixels. Also, I'm shooting this video right now with the R5, so it's kind of behind where you are right now, and I've only got one of them, so that's just how it has to be. Now the R5 was on a bull head that I pinched off an old Joby Gorilla pot, but you can get one of these on their own from Amazon for about 25 bucks, or here in the UK we call that around about 25 pounds. The bull head is screwed onto the Manfrotto 37 camera mounting stud. These are about $13. I got mine from Wex Photographic in Norwich, and this is screwed onto the Manfrotto Magic Arm, and these things are just bananas good. Basically, you position the arm into whatever exact position you want it to be in, and you lock it in place, and when you've done that, it ain't going nowhere. The arm is then plugged into the Manfrotto super clamp that's grabbing onto this light stand like it's going out of fashion. This whole Manfrotto Magic Arm kit was £145, also from Wex. I didn't buy that specifically for this project. You would be amazed how frequently you'll use something like this after you've bought one. Now you might need to counterbalance the stand. I simply used a weighted bag to ensure that the whole thing didn't topple over. So the camera is mounted onto the Joby bullhead, and of course that's pointing straight down at the table where I'm going to be taking one photo after another. I'm using the Canon RF 24-70 lens. It is the f2.8 version, but you don't need f2.8 for this because, you'll see in a moment, we don't want to be shooting at 2.8. You can quite happily use another lens, even something like the Canon 50mm f1.8 lens, otherwise known as the Nifty 50. Now while we're here, I need you to do me a favour please. If you're finding this video helpful so far, then you'll find the rest of this video super helpful too. So please give it a like, because you have no idea how much that helps a channel like this and how much it helps me too. Let's get back to it. So the camera is then plugged into my laptop with a USB-C cable because I've installed the Canon EOS utility software, and this means I can see exactly what the camera sees, and I can take a photo using the laptop instead of reaching up to the camera. Detail like this is crucial in reducing the amount of time you'll be spending on this project. Maybe it only saves you 7 seconds per photo that you take, but in my case, 2,400 photos, that's over 4.5 hours longer. Now I only spent 4 hours on this whole project, so that small step is definitely worth doing. It always makes sense to refine the process as much as possible. Now the next thing you want to do is go through your photos and sort them into piles according to size. One pile for 4x6 photos, one for 5x7s, one for 9x6s, so on and so on. Now you might have some old photos that are square, so sort all of those into one pile too. The reason for this is that it's much quicker to not touch the camera between each photo that you take, so that then you can tape out on the table exactly where a photo would go, say if it's a 5x7, and then you literally put different photos down in exactly the same place each time and then take a picture. But then after you've done that, before you get going, you then sort each of your groups into portrait and landscape as well. Then you can either rotate the camera around when you shoot the different aspect ratio, or if you're anything like me, 90% of your images are in landscape already. So I kept the camera the same way around for the other 10%, because then I can group them together and easily select them all in Lightroom and then do one single batch command to rotate them all around 90 degrees. Now before I come on to camera settings, let me just show you my lighting setup. I'm using 2 lights, that's all. They're both daylight bulbs. Each one is on a very inexpensive light stand. One of them is 135 watts, the other one is 85 watts. These lights really are great value for money. I got both of them from Amazon for less than £100. They're both on next day delivery, and these are pointed at about 45-degree angles to minimize the chance of reflections. Now, literally perched on top of 4 light stands is this black pop-out backdrop. I've balanced it on each of these 4 light stands because then you don't get light coming from directly overhead. Why is that good? It's because with the camera directly above the photo like this, then you'll either get the shadow appearing, or worse, if there's any reflective surface on the photo, then you'll see the camera reflected in the gloss. But a black ceiling takes all of that problem away. It also kind of makes it feel a bit like a den. So the camera settings that I use are as follows. Number 1, autofocus stays on. Even though the distance doesn't change between the camera and the photograph, if you knocked it by accident and didn't spot it for 280 photos, you'd be pretty hacked off to have to go back and do them all over again. Besides, the camera can focus on a photo super quickly, so don't worry at all about that. Number 2, my aperture is set to f6.3. Don't make the mistake of thinking that because it's a flat photo, you can use a wide open aperture and everything will be in focus. It won't be, because the distance from the camera to the middle of the photo is less than the distance from the camera to the edge of the photo. That means the further you get from the center, the more blurred it's going to be. Number 3, I set the ISO to 500 to ensure it didn't pick up any noise. But you'll know that even with bright lights like this and an aperture like f6.3 and a fairly moderate ISO, that means a longer shutter speed, and you're not at all wrong. So I'm using 1/25th of a second. And because there's no movement, that is absolutely peachy. Just make sure that your desk isn't wobbly. This one here is a little bit wobbly, so I just had to be a little bit careful of that. Then keep an eye on how your photos are looking and how bright they are. If you start doing this in daytime and you don't have any blackout blinds, then some of the ambient light that you're getting in the room will help to light your images. So as evening draws in, you might need to increase your ISO, but don't reduce the aperture anymore or you'll start getting those blurred edges. And then you can go one photo after another, after another, after another. Then in Lightroom, you can crop the first photo in each batch to ensure that you don't get bits of table on the photo, and then you can sync that setting across them all until you see them all change and they're all shrunk in nicely. Now this method, like I say, will take just 10% of the time that it would have otherwise taken, at least on my scanner. Now my scanner is part of an HP printer, so it's not a bad scanner, but you could easily spend good money on a decent scanner which would yield better results than this method of taking photographs. However, if that method is going to take you too much time and that results in you not actually doing it in the first place, then this could be the perfect method for you. Now with my photos, I'm not going to be throwing them out after I've done this, but it does allow me to A, have them on my Mac for easy access, which means I can look at them, and B, I can share these pictures with friends and family so that they can remember some fun times too. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions at all about this whole approach, then drop it in the comments and I'll answer it myself. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.